We will now call to order the special call agenda for the Muskogee Municipal Authority for April 4th, 2022. We will start by having the invocation by Trustee Alex Reynolds, followed by the flag salute. Let us stand.
Good evening, everyone. I'd like to welcome you to the meeting tonight, everyone that is here, and of course everyone that is home as well. If you would, please take a minute to join us in our prayer. Heavenly Father, please forgive us of our sins, those which we've knowingly committed and those which we have committed without knowledge. Father, please watch over and guide us tonight as we go about doing the business of the city. And please watch over our citizens as we go about the election tomorrow. We have a city election tomorrow and a lot of things on the horizon. And if I can ask everyone at home and here, if you could please add the Miller family to your prayer list. Mike, our city manager, and his wife Holly have been in Colorado where their daughter Annie has had a pretty tragic accident. And tonight we ask that everyone please lift up Annie in their arms to heaven. And we ask for blessings of healing. And please go about and help their family and bring them peace and bring them through this and help them get safely home to us. In Jesus Christ's name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Let us look to the flag. Attention, salute, pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call.
Mayor Marlon Coleman.
Here.
Deputy Mayor Derek Reed.
Here.
Ivory Van.
Here.
Jamie Stout.
Here.
Evelyn Hibbs. Here. Alex Reynolds.
Here.
Stephanie Morgan. Here. Tracy McGee. Tracy Hoos.
Here. Thank you. Item number 1.
Receive, report, discuss, and take action to accept ODEQ Consent Order 21-093 as modified and authorize execution of the same or take other necessary action.
Mr. Stewart.
Mayor and members of the committee, what we have before us today is a consent order that we have received from ODEQ. And I'll give you a little history on it, and then I'm going to ask Mr. Toller, who is our engineer, to come up and address some of the more particular points for you so you'll understand them a little better. But on November 16th, 2021, the Muskogee Municipal Authority, City of Muskogee, received via certified mail Consent Order 20-093 from the Oklahoma Department of Environmental Quality related to Facility S-20415, which is our Muskogee wastewater treatment plant. And we, at the time of notice of this, we were given 30 days to respond, and this was again on November 16th. So the consent order demands that certain tasks be undertaken to eliminate permit violations on a specified schedule and bring the wastewater treatment plant into compliance with Oklahoma statutes and regulations and to pay an administrative penalty. The contention is that the plant exceeded specific limits pertaining to TSS, BOD, and E. coli limits set forth by the Oklahoma Department of Environmental Quality between the dates of April 1, 2019 and July 21, 2021. Give me a minute to catch my breath. That was a lot for me to read. The Muskogee Municipal Authority has requested a settlement conference. We, after meeting with the city manager and the city attorney and staff, we decided that we wanted to request a settlement conference because we did think that there was items in this consent order that we didn't totally agree with. So the Municipal Authority had requested a settlement conference to refute the conclusions of the ODEQ based on events that occurred during the proposed timeline. The events which occurred included flooding of the region in May of 2019, freezing and inclement weather in February of 2021, and the COVID epidemic of 2020 and 2021. Request for the settlement conference was sent to Sherry Chard, Director of the Environmental Quality, on 12/8/21, so we met our deadline. We had a 30-day notice. We responded timely and asked for a settlement conference. Mr. Tucker worked diligently on getting that set up, and we did get a conference, which we attended on 1/19 of 2022. Attending that were myself, public works staff, our city attorney, Roy Tucker, and our city manager, and Steve Toller, our engineer with Hub. We, at that time, we were looking at an $87,000 fine, which $4,875 of it we could put towards task A, which was completing a task that we had already had in a previous consent order. And they were going to allow us to defer $17,000 of that to an SCP project, or we could put $17,000 of that money into a project. But, and then the total payment that we would have to make and the fine was going to be $65,625. After we went up there, we did get a response back from them, and they did reduce the money value on the fines. They did allow us to defer $37,500 of that. $50,000 was going to be in a fine, so $37,500 was to be put back in some of those other task orders, and then $50,000 was going to be the fine that was going to be levied now, with $25,000 of the $50 being deferred, so we'd only have to pay $25,000 fine instead of the $65,000. So by going up there, we knocked that down by $40,000, although we have to put the $25,000 in with a match of $25,000 and do a SCP project. And an SCP project is a supplemental environmental project, which can either be stormwater or wastewater. And by the way, there's plenty of these projects in the community to do, so there's no problem in coming up with the SCP. So that knocks the total of this fine down to $25,000. And in saying all that, I'm going to let Steve come up. He did an excellent job in outlining what had happened at the wastewater plant, the age of the plant, some of the conditions that existed during the time frame that we were under, and especially some of the projects that we currently have underway, because most of the stuff that they've identified, we already know, and we're already trying to attack, and we've already informed council of these projects, and we're just trying to get it done. So basically, the consent order is just telling us to fix the things that we already know are broke out there, need repaired, or get the limits in line with what we already know they need to be. So I'll be glad to answer any questions after Mr. Toller gets through, but I got a feeling that he's going to outline it pretty well for you.
Thank you very much, Mike. Thanks for the opportunity to speak in front of you today. I'm Steve Toller, Hub Engineers. I've been physically working at your wastewater plant since about 2017. Got a really good familiarity with pieces and parts of it and what it needs to continue to be successful. Mike mentioned the settlement conference. That was a great opportunity to get in front of DEQ and put your case forward. The consent order does have a big list of violations from your discharge permit limits. But one of the things that we really tried to emphasize to DEQ is that these are kind of exceptional circumstances. The flood and the freeze that both damaged equipment that takes a long time to order and replace. And then the COVID epidemic with the workforce availability, delays in products and equipment. Everything just kind of happened at the same time, and it left the large pieces of the wastewater plant inoperable, which resulted in those violations. So there's a reason, there's a story behind everything that you're seeing in that consent order. And there's a good path forward too, and we'll talk a little bit about that. The work at the wastewater plant, I think you guys are all aware, we've had a Clean Water State Revolving Fund loan project out where we've done some significant improvements in the collection system, doing new lift stations, demolishing old abandoned lift stations, really improving the collection portion of the wastewater treatment plant. But we've also spent up to date about $7 million in equipment replacements and improvements at the wastewater plant. Starting in 2017, we initiated the first project, which improved the screening at the raw sewage pump station, big pump station that lifts all the wastewater into the treatment plant. That project finished on time. It went great. We advertised and awarded the main wastewater treatment plant rehabilitation project. And I'm sorry, I'm going to have to refer to my notes here several times, but that began in August 2018 and was scheduled for completion in August 2019, and work was going well until the flood hit. The flood, I passed this out just because I'm going to use some names and some descriptions of some treatment processes, and it's always nice just to be able to look there and have a good understanding of where they're at. But basically, if this is north, the flooded the entire eastern half of the plant. And so not only were processes impacted by the actual floodwater, but even the chemical and biological processes that were outside of that flood line were affected because, like the anaerobic digester process requires food to keep the bacteria alive. And when the rest of your wastewater treatment plant is out of commission, you can't keep it running. So there were both direct and indirect impacts resulting from that flood. Not only that, but the contractor that was doing active work replacing, necessary pumps and devices inside the wastewater plant that really needed to be rehabbed, he had to stop all that work, and then he helped with the cleanup and the restoration of the flood damaged equipment. So that project was pretty severely delayed and finished over a year and a half after when it was intended to. So remember, these were things that were identified back in 2017 before the consent order, before anything happened, identified critical pieces of equipment that needed to be replaced so that you can keep the plant running. And when you take that out of the picture, you're left with a plant that's largely inoperable at times during this event. So several other projects, a skater replacement project, were completed after the original deadline. We went through a big list of the direct and indirect impacts that the flood had with DEQ. I've got a good summary here. If you have any specific questions, I'd be more than happy to go through them, but it's a list of about 13 items. Major processes that were out of commission, and then secondary impacts that causes other issues to fail. And then you add into that the COVID impact, the severe freeze that we had in February of last year that froze and damaged some equipment that had just been replaced. It was just extraordinary. And I think DEQ understood that. I think that is a good reasoning and a good decision on their part to reduce the fine. And they also granted additional time for the completion of the task that's required. And I think Mr. Stewart's going to address that in the next agenda item. The good news, though, I think we have a plan going forward. DEQ is going to require you guys to complete what we call an engineering report, which means that we've got to look at everything that comes into the wastewater plant, flows, loads. We've got to project Muskogee's growth and their future needs at the wastewater plant. And then we've got to come up with a solution to get the treatment plant back into operable condition and ensure that it's going to be capable of meeting future flows and meet permit limits for the next 20 to 30 years. So the task coming out of the consent order is it's a written report that we'll share and present with you guys that will kind of outline your path forward for the improvements that you need at the wastewater plant. So, does anybody have any specific questions about what happened or how or anything else that I could help talk through?
Any questions from members of the authority? Thank you. Mr. Stewart?
So, Mayor, what we need is for you to sign off on the consent order, and then we're going to have to submit a $50,000 payment, which again, $25,000 of that can come back to us for an SCP project. So if we're on top of our game, our $25,000 will be the max that will be penalized in the long run. We will have to have Task A, which Mr. Toller spoke to, and that's that engineering report completed by September 1, so we'll be on a time clock. And then just so you know, once we submit that report, a month or so later, we're going to get another letter from DEQ telling us that we're going to have to put all this stuff into place. So to summarize, we're talking about a plant that was built many years ago, upgraded in the 90s, and that's the last time it had any real major work except for just here lately. So this plant needs work, and what DEQ is basically telling us is, city, we want to know what your problems are, and then we want you to fix them. And that's basically what this report and what's going to ultimately come from this. And that's what we were working on towards anyway, if you've been keeping up with everything we're doing out at the wastewater plant. So, hate that we've got a consent order, but we just need to correct our plant, move forward.
Thank you, Mr. Stewart. Do we have any questions on item number 1 or motion on how we want to take action?
I have a quick question.
Mr. Reynolds.
Mike, if I could. Mike, a few times a year, we get a strong odor that comes from that direction. I'm
Right.
told I'm told that's either the treatment facility or Georgia Pacific or the river turning over. Out of general curiosity,
So I've never heard the river turning over one,
okay.
but I have repeatedly been told that it's our wastewater plant, which I do feel like is some of it. And I do know that raw pulp does have a good odor to it too. So depending on the direction of the wind, and if you're at the plant, you can tell that the truth of it is it's in both parts. It's in the GP plant, and it's also in our sewage plant. And some of the things that we'll do to correct it will help resolve some of our issues. And I don't think you're ever gonna get away from all of it out there, because that's the nature of the beast, but you're right, it's both issues.
I hear several different things, so
So when the wind's blowing from the north, go out there and you'll catch some of that GPs. It depends on their process, what they're doing at their plant.
thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Reynolds. Do we have a motion from a member of the authority?
Move for approval.
Second?
We have a motion and a second on item number 1. Any further discussion? Roll call.
Tracy Hous.
Yes.
Stephanie Morgan.
Yes.
Alex Reynolds.
Yes.
Evelyn Hibbs.
Yes.
Jamie Stout.
Yes.
Ivory Van.
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Derek Reed.
Yes.
Mayor Marlon Coleman.
Yes, the item passes. Item number 2.
Consider approval of an agreement with Holloway, Updike, and Bellin Incorporated and Muskogee Municipal Authority in the amount of $137,000 for engineering services related to Consent Order 21-093, or take other necessary action.
Mr. Stewart.
Yes, this is to put Holloway, Updike, and Bellin, specifically Mr. Toller, under contract to do that report that we're gonna have to turn in on September 1st. I did question him over the fees. I thought they looked a little high to me at 137, and then after some back and forth discussion and some follow-up from him, they're probably pretty well in line, especially if you take that the engineering fees usually run 7 to 10%, and we're definitely going to come up with several $1 million worth of projects out there before it's said and done. So do feel like that was an appropriate figure. Did discuss it with Mr. Miller briefly. Never got it confirmed from him if it was okay, but he didn't tell me no either. So we have researched it. We feel it's appropriate. We know we have to have this work done. We do recommend approval.
Thank you, Mr. Stewart. Do we have any questions from the authority or a motion on how to proceed?
Move for approval.
Second?
We have a motion and a second on item number 2. Any further discussion? Roll call.
Tracy Hous.
Yes.
Stephanie Morgan.
Yes.
Alex Reynolds.
Yes.
Evelyn Hibbs.
Yes.
Jamie Stout.
Yes.
Ivory Van.
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Derek Reed.
Yes.
Mayor Marlon Coleman.
Yes, item number 2 passes. Thank you. Item number 3.
Consider approval of an amendment of agreement with Holloway, Updike, and Bellin Incorporated dated June 15, 2021 for additional services to the landfill sewer line project number 2022011 in the amount of $8,700, or take other necessary action.
Mr. Stewart.
Yes, as you're aware, we are doing a project to put a sewer line into the landfill. I think we discussed that at the last meeting. And that project was engineered by Holloway, Updike, and Bellin, and we did pass a contract with them that was under $25,000, so Mr. Miller signed off on it. What we need now, though, is we're going out to the bidding services and the actual construction part of it, and we've decided to let Holloway do that as well. So it's going to add $8,700 to an already $25,000 contract, which means that I got to get council approval for it because it exceeded that $25,000 spending limit. So this is simply to get Holloway and Updike and Bellin to go ahead and do the bidding services and the construction services and the construction documents. So recommend approval. It is part of that landfill project, and this does extend the life of our existing landfill by 2 to 3 more years, and we're currently working on a plan to even extend it further.
Thank you, Mr. Stewart. Do we have any questions on item number 3 or a motion from the authority on how to proceed?
Move for approval.
Second?
We have a motion and a second on item number 3. Any further discussion? Roll call.
Tracy Hous.
Yes.
Stephanie Morgan.
Yes.
Alex Reynolds.
Yes.
Evelyn Hibbs.
Yes.
Jamie Stout.
Yes.
Ivory Van.
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Derek Reed.
Yes.
Mayor Marlon Coleman.
Yes, the item passes. Thank you. That will conclude the meeting of the Muskogee Municipal Authority.
Call to order the Finance Committee meeting for April 4th, 2022. Item number 1, please.
Consider approval of Finance Committee minutes of March 21, 2022, or take other necessary action.
Reviewing of the minutes, are there any corrections, additions to our minutes?
Move for approval.
Second.
Have a motion and a second to approve our minutes. Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Tracy Hous.
Yes.
Stephanie Morgan.
Yes.
Alex Reynolds.
Yes.
Evelyn Hibbs.
Yes.
Jamie Stout.
Yes.
Ivory Van.
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Derek Reed.
Yes.
Mayor Marlon Coleman.
Yes.
Item number 1 passes. Item number 2, please.
Consider approval of claims for all city departments March 12, 2022 through March 25, 2022, or take other necessary action.
We have a report from the Purchasing Committee.
Yes, the purchasing committee did meet this afternoon, and we approved the claims. I move for approval.
Second.
Second.
Have a motion and a second to approve our claims list. Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Tracy Hous.
Yes.
Stephanie Morgan.
Yes.
Alex Reynolds.
Yes.
Evelyn Hibbs.
Yes.
Jamie Stout.
Yes.
Ivory Van.
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Derek Reed.
Yes.
Mayor Marlon Coleman.
Yes.
Item number 2 passes, and that is our final item for finance.
We will now call to order the Public Works Committee for April 4th, 2022. Item number 1, please.
Consider approval of Public Works Committee minutes of March 21, 2022, or take other necessary action.
Is there any corrections or additions?
Move for
Approval.
second.
Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Tracy Hous.
Yes.
Stephanie Morgan.
Yes.
Alex Reynolds.
Yes.
Evelyn Hibbs.
Yes.
Jamie Stout.
Yes.
Ivory Van.
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Derek Reed.
Yes.
Mayor Marlon Coleman.
Yes.
And the motion passes. Item number 2.
Consider approval of the lowest bid from Cook Consulting LLC for the wastewater system improvements Interpack Extension, project number 202117, in the amount of $88,445.83, or take other necessary action.
Good evening, Mayor, Committee. This project would allow the city sewer system to be connected to the Interpack facility at 2424 North Main Street. This system will replace Interpack's lagoon system that they currently utilize on site. The engineer's estimate was $120,000. The lowest and best bid for the project was received from Cook Consulting in the amount of $88,445.83. The engineer and staff does recommend Cook Consulting for the project. Funding for the project will be from the Economic Development Funds and if authorized. Thank you. And we do recommend approval.
Okay. Do we have a motion?
Move for approval.
Second.
Any discussion?
Madam Chair,
Yes.
I was just going to thank the staff. This has been in works for quite some time now, working to be certain that we work with companies like Oklahoma Interpack, that they will have longevity to stay in Muskogee. And so this will go a long way towards doing that, so certainly thank the staff for their work. Mr. Stewart and I have been working on racking our brains on making certain that we can get this through. It's taking some time, as most things do these days. But certainly we want to thank the staff for everything that they did. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Mayor. Roll call, please.
Tracy Hous.
Yes.
Stephanie Morgan.
Yes.
Alex Reynolds.
Yes.
Evelyn Hibbs.
Yes.
Jamie Stout.
Yes.
Ivory Van.
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Derek Reed.
Yes.
Mayor Marlon Coleman.
Yes.
And the motion passes. Item number 3.
Consider approval of the lowest and best bid from McGuire Brothers Construction Incorporated for the Hatbox RV Sewer Project number 2022007 in the amount of $279,590, or take other necessary action.
If authorized, this project will allow the city's sewer system to be connected to the Hatbox Sports Complex RV Park. The system will accommodate 157 spaces in the park. The engineering estimate for the project was $300,000. The lowest and best bid was received from McGuire Brothers, an amount of $279,590. The engineer and staff does recommend McGuire Brothers for the project. Funding for the project will be from the Clean Water State Revolving Fund, if authorized. And staff does recommend approval.
Okay. Do we have a motion?
Move for approval.
Second.
Any discussion? Roll call.
Tracy Hous.
Yes.
Stephanie Morgan.
Yes.
Alex Reynolds.
Yes.
Evelyn Hibbs.
Yes.
Jamie Stout.
Here. Yes.
Ivory Van.
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Derek Reed.
Yes.
Mayor Marlon Coleman.
Yes.
And the motion passes. Item number 4.
Consider approval of the appointment of Samuel Craig to the Parks and Recreation Board to serve a 4-year term, filling the expired term of Blanca Lopez, beginning April 1, 2022, and ending March 31, 2026, or take other necessary action.
Counselor Van.
Yeah, this is my appointment for the Parks and Recreation Board. Dr. Samuel Craig, he's one of my heroes, and he does a lot here in the community, here in Muskogee, and I thought this would be a good fit for the Park Board, and so this is my appointment, and like I say, he's a great man, and like I say, he's been up here at the City Council meetings before, and one thing I can say about Dr. Craig, he's always got a smile on his face and always lifts people up. He's a good man, so that's my appointment.
Thank you. So that's in the form of a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Any more discussion? Roll call, please.
Tracy Hous.
Yes.
Stephanie Morgan.
Yes.
Alex Reynolds.
Yes.
Evelyn Hibbs.
Yes.
Jamie Stout.
Yes.
Ivory Van.
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Derek Reed.
Yes.
Mayor Marlon Coleman.
Yes.
The motion passes. That concludes our agenda for Public Works this
We
evening.
we will now call to order the special call meeting for the Muskogee City Council for April 4th, 2022. Roll call.
Mayor Marlon Coleman.
Here.
Deputy Mayor Derek Reed.
Here.
Ivory Van.
Here.
Jamie Stout.
Here.
Evelyn Hibbs.
Here.
Alex Reynolds.
Here.
Stephanie Morgan.
Here.
Tracy McGee. Tracy Hous.
Here. Thank you. Item number 1.
Consider approval of resolution number 2894, authorizing certain modifications to the medical plan benefits under the City of Muskogee Employee Benefit Plan, providing and directing said modifications be incorporated into the plan documents, summary plan descriptions and benefit summary sheets, as well as approval of resolution number 2895, approving and authorizing execution of the Blue Cross Blue Shield Benefit Program application and required addendums, PBM termination letter, Blue Cross Blue Shield exhibit to the stop loss coverage policy, Prime Therapeutics required documents, and all other required documents, all to become effective on May 1, 2022, and authorizing the city manager or designee to execute all necessary documents for renewal and implementation purposes or take other necessary action.
Ms. Swayze.
Good evening, Mayor and councilors. As you know, we've been discussing this topic for a few weeks, and I've had ongoing discussions the past week with finance, as well as our outgoing HR director. I'm happy to have our new HR director in place today. She started quickly, Maggie Eaton. We are getting up to speed on all the insurance options for employees in the next plan year. That starts on May 1st, so we are getting into the crunch time for a decision on going with one plan versus 2 plans. And again, we need to start open enrollment by the 18th, so we've got about another week left if any further discussions or questions arise. The committee does recommend the 2 plans, but I will be happy to answer any council questions.
Thank you, Ms. Swayze. Let me also add that Ms. Swayze, myself, Dr. Hous, and probably several others have been in conversations to be certain that we find a way to minimize the impact on employees for what the option 2 will be, and those conversations are still ongoing. We haven't come up with a firm recommendation in terms of how the offset may work on behalf of the city. So I'm asking us that if we can, we'd like to have one more week because we're still having those conversations, particularly when we look at ARPA funds for year 1 versus ARPA funds for year 2, and how we may be able to apply them across the board in a way that minimizes that impact. So I'm asking council's permission that we take action on this item on next Monday night when we have the financial piece for how we may use the ARPA funds to balance off those offsets against the employees, if that's pleasing to the council. Mr. Tucker, do I need a motion to that effect?
You will need a motion to table this to the next regular city council meeting.
If that's okay, council, that would be my motion. And again, we're only doing that because we're still in conversations on the piece that will offset the cost of the employees.
Second.
And I think that is April 11th.
We have a motion and a second on that item. Any further discussion from members of the council? Roll call.
Tracy Hous.
Yes.
Stephanie Morgan.
Yes.
Alex Reynolds.
Yes.
Evelyn Hibbs.
Yes.
Jamie Stout.
Yes.
Ivory Van.
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Derek Reed.
Yes.
Mayor Marlon Coleman.
Yes, the item passes. Item number 2.
Consider approval to direct staff to solicit proposals for assisting in the development of an updated comprehensive plan, subject to funding, or take other necessary action.
Mr. Hazelton.
Good evening, Mayor and member of the councils. Got a slideshow here because I've heard that y'all are new to the comprehensive game, with maybe Commissioner or Deputy Mayor Reed being the last one on when we adopted our last comprehensive plan in 2012. So I've got a couple of quick slides here, kind of why we need a comprehensive plan, what they cover, what we're looking for, and what we're requesting. So purpose of comprehensive plans, they set out what we're doing over a 15 to 20 year period, and they kind of inform capital improvement plans, which are more project-based, that are 3 to 5 year, more of a financial planning document. So your comprehensive plan informs your CIP plan, and that identification of the projects in the comprehensive plan and the CIP plan is what helps us with grant funding in the future. So comprehensive plans contain a lot of information. This is kind of just general from the last one that we had. Their community profile, which gives us kind of what we currently have in the city. Then it moves into their process for outreach, getting the public involved through meetings, surveys, websites, different ways that they did that and how they incorporated community feedback. Then they give what the future looks like, and then goals and objectives to how to reach that future. And it breaks into the future plan, which is really where the CIP and projects come out, and where we get into how we fund those projects, which is the final chapter for implementation of this is the plan, this is what a third party thinks the city should do to realize our plan with community input. And then they split it into these individual projects, and then they identify how we fund and make these a reality. So kind of the example process is, you get your projects in a broad sense, such as we want to, and I just use this as an example because it's the easiest one, is Muskogee wants to promote active transportation networks. So that's one of the main things that is one of the main chapters in your comprehensive plan. And then from there, you put quantitative projects like we want to build 20 miles of bike lanes over the next 3 to 5 years. And then because we've identified that in our comprehensive plan and our CIP, we're able to win money from ODOT or the feds or some other grant program. But your projects have to be identified in your CIP or your comprehensive plans to get there. And so we've had them in the past in conversations with Tish and Gary and other members that use the comprehensive plan. This was the one we did in 2013. This would be something that we're looking more for because they used our zoning classifications for designating the future land use map, opposed to kind of a general overview of land use map. So we kind of have a set criteria based on what past directors have told me. And so we are asking tonight for council direction to move forward with an RFP to take a look at developing and updating our comprehensive plan, and it will more than likely be grant funded. And I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Hazelton. Let me say before we take other comments from the council that we know that excuse me, we've been battling for several years now with modifications to the plan to adjust different zoning requests. I think this is the time for us as a council in the city to look at how we can update the plan, as it is also time to do so according to the expiration of what may be relevant for what cities and municipalities are doing across the country. So I think this is the right time for us to do it. Certainly we need to move as quickly as possible so that we can be more in line with what we want as a city versus having to always adjust or take variances accordingly. Do we have any other conversation from the council? A motion to approve?
Move for approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second on item number 2. Any discussion? Roll call.
Tracy Hous.
Yes.
Stephanie Morgan.
Yes.
Alex Reynolds.
Yes.
Evelyn Hibbs. Jamie Stout.
Yes.
Ivory Van.
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Derek Reed.
Yes.
Mayor Marlon Coleman.
Yes. The item passes. Item number 3.
Consider an executive session to discuss and take possible action on the following. A, pursuant to 307B1, Title 25, Oklahoma statutes, consider convening an executive session to discuss and possibly appoint Jennifer Sweezy as interim city manager to serve on a temporary basis during the absence of the city manager, setting the salary and benefits thereto, and take appropriate action in open session.
Do we have a motion to go into executive session?
Move for approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to go into executive session. Roll call.
Tracy Hous.
Yes.
Stephanie Morgan.
Yes.
Alex Reynolds.
Yes.
Evelyn Hibbs. Jamie Stout.
Yes.
Ivory Van.
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Derek Reed.
Yes.
Mayor Marlon Coleman.
Yes, we will now go into executive session. I'm going to ask that all of those who are not party to the session, please excuse themselves from the chamber at this time. We will now return from executive session. Roll call.
Mayor Marlon Coleman.
Here.
Deputy Mayor Derek Reed.
Here.
Ivory Van.
Here.
Jamie Stout. Here. Evelyn Hibbs.
Here.
Alex Reynolds.
Here.
Stephanie Morgan.
Here.
Tracy Hous.
Mr. Tucker.
Thank you, Mayor. Item 3A, pursuant to Section 307B1, Title 25 Oklahoma statutes, the council did convene an executive session to discuss and possibly appoint Jennifer Sweezy as interim city manager. After discussing the subject of the item, I think an appropriate motion would be to appoint Ms. Sweezy as the interim city manager, authorizing an interim employment agreement with her, establishing the terms as discussed in executive session, commencing April 4th, 2022, and ending upon return of the city manager from FMLA leave, or as may sooner be terminated by either Ms. Sweezy or the city council.
Thank you, Mr. Tucker. Do we have a motion to that effect?
Move for approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Roll call.
Tracy Hous.
Yes.
Stephanie Morgan.
Yes.
Alex Reynolds.
Yes.
Evelyn Hibbs.
Yes.
Jamie Stout.
Yes.
Ivory Van.
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Derek Reed.
Yes.
Mayor Marlon Coleman.
Yes, the item passes. We have no other items on the agenda, therefore we are adjourned.